Hello everyone. Today I will list 14 points that explain why Lorne is completely innocent, and this is from the federal lawsuits that Lorne wrote. It's a masterpiece. So how did he name that document? Response to United States motion to dismiss second or successive motion to vacate, set aside, or correct sentence pursuant to 28 U.S.C. section 2255. And this was filed in 2013, so it's a relatively recent document. It's a pretty long document. He claims that being newly discovered evidence to support an entrapment defense, appellant does have it. In response to United States comment on appellant not having newly discovered evidence, appellant does have it. I have the evidence. Appellant was able to obtain the evidence after getting out of incarceration. Well, that's practical, when you're sentenced and you serve your sentence and then you find some evidence to show that you're not guilty. You're like, it sucks. I won't lie. Let's say I serve 5 years in jail and I get out and I find proof that I'm not guilty. I would be like, shit, I wish I had found it earlier. Better late than never. And then it says, which is something you should not have had to endure, but did because of the prosecution withholding evidence that was vital to any decision being made toward whether or not to plead guilty. That's a funny argument to make. You're saying basically, yes, I pled guilty, but if I had known that there was some evidence to show I was not guilty, I would not have pled guilty. It's such a weird way to think. It's like saying, well, I'm really guilty, but there was a loophole I could have used to get acquitted. He's basically saying, if you're not guilty, plead not guilty. Don't go and plead guilty. Okay? If you're not guilty of a crime, don't go and say like, oh, I'm going to plead guilty. Oh no, I found evidence that show I was not guilty. Like, the judicial system is a mess, but you don't need to add on top of it, you don't need to go and say like, I'm gonna make it even more messed up. The argument he's making is basically saying like, if I had that evidence at the time, I wouldn't have pled guilty. But by pleading guilty, you're saying that you are guilty. It's like, well, I'm guilty, but I might have been found not guilty. That's not how it works, Lorne. Okay. This prosecutorial misconduct was shameful, pathetic, and disgusting, to say the least. No, Lorne, I don't want you to say the least. I want you to say the more. He would have gone and said, like, it's egregious, it's horrendous, it's horrifying, it's bone-chilling, it's catastrophic, it's an assault. I don't know what he would have said. I'm glad that he says the least, When you say that a prosecutor acts shamefully, pathetically, and disgusting, I'm glad you reserve some, I'm glad you didn't go all in on that. Argument one. I guess you thought like, okay, my documents need to be more structured now that I'm out of jail. I have a real computer. Now he says, any plea agreement cannot be made without full understanding that the legal system must, by law. Now that's like redundant. The legal system must, by law. Like, I hope so, It's already the legal system. Provide all evidence to the accused, including exculpatory evidence. So now he's saying, back when I accepted the plea deal, and that was like 5 years ago, like, you should have given me the evidence 5 years ago. Like, dude, it's been 5 years. You just woke up one morning and started thinking about that. And he says the prosecution figured that if appellant was threatened with a bogus charge, he's referring to the attempted production of child pornography. So he's saying basically, the prosecutor threatened to add a bogus charge of attempted production of child pornography, and that's why I pled guilty. It's not an argument that's very strong because, of course, the charge is not bogus. He brought a camera to take pictures of an underage girl and sexually, can I take a picture of my penis in your vagina? Of course he was going to take pictures. Of course you were, on. That held more time than appellant would agree. President would have that held more time than appellant would agree to anything to make sure he didn't end up with a substantial amount of time incarcerated. I don't understand that sentence. The prosecution figured that if appellant was threatened with a bogus charge that held more time than appellant would agree, then appellant would agree. So he's saying like, yeah, you threatened me with, I think it was like 25 years in prison, federal prison, you stupid fuck. Like, they threatened me with 25 years, so I'm going to agree to anything because I don't want 25 years. But Lorne, I mean, I mean, I don't understand your argument. You're saying that you were bullied into accepting the plea deal. That's what you're saying. You're saying, like, they threatened me with 25 years in prison. So that's why I accepted the plea agreement. But, Lorne, I mean, it's a bit dumb. It's like saying, I'm going to go negotiate. Let's say I want to sell my car, and the guy offers me 5,000. And then I say, no, it's 10,000. And the guy says, okay, 5,500. And I say, yes. I'm not going to go and say, like, the buyer threatened to run away. The buyer threatened to go away. So I had to sell my car for 7,500 instead of 10,000. Okay? I mean, if you didn't want the deal, why did you take it? Oh, I was afraid to be charged with more crimes. But Lorne, you accepted a deal specifically not to be charged with that crime. I mean, it's not how the legal system works. You cannot go and say like, oh, I only pled guilty because I was afraid to be sentenced to more time in prison. I mean, no, Lorne. I mean, some people could say, okay, but I did not have the money like to pay for defense. But that's another problem entirely. In your case, Lorne, there's not a lawyer on earth, not an expert. Let's say you have a very complicated case and you need some expert testimonial and you need like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now you say, well, I don't have that money, so I'm gonna accept a plea deal because I don't have the money to fight it. Okay, that I can understand. But in your case, Lorne, the evidence was so damning, and even there you were poor, so it would have been free. If you pled guilty because you know full well that you were going to be found guilty by a jury anyway. So you might as well plead guilty and just stop wasting time, And you got something in exchange, You got the guarantee that both sentences would run concurrently. So don't go and say like, oh, I was bullied. I didn't get a fair deal. Therefore, the prosecutor added in the binding agreement to make sure appellant would have less of a chance of finding out the truth and attacking the bogus conviction. I don't understand. I mean, you just realized today, like in 2013, you're like, oh, now I found out what a binding agreement is. Of course it's a binding agreement. Like, you're going to sign a contract and say, you know what, I changed my mind. It's a binding agreement, meaning that you're bound to the agreement, meaning that actually what it means is that if the judge refuses a plea deal, then you can still plead not guilty. So you only accept, and it's only going to be valid if the judge agrees with it. If the judge says, no, I don't want this plea deal, then you can remove your plea of guilt and you can go not guilty. I mean, even if it was against you, which it's not, there's nothing about it that says like you have less of a chance of finding out the truth and attacking his bogus conviction. Now you're saying like, I was convicted, but it's not a valid conviction. I mean, you're such an idiot, Lorne. However, appellant has found the evidence to support his claim and understand the law more clearly now versus when he was first, and is now more versed when he was first incarcerated. The U.S. attorney was supposed to include all evidence, besides the DVDs being edited and pages missing from the chat log. That's interesting, but not really. Like, the 149 pages was probably just a clerk mistake. Like, they probably said, like, man, this chat log is 404 pages long. We're only going to send, like, the first 250 pages. That's probably what happened. And the DVDs, which is from Dateline NBC, I don't understand. There wasn't even any trial, so don't go and say that evidence was missing. No, he's saying, no, if I had the full evidence, there was something in that would have exonerated me. But that's a big stretch of imagination, Lorne. If there really was something exonerating in the evidence, just plead not guilty, and then you're going to get the full evidence. You can subpoena Dateline, you can subpoena NBC, and you're going to get the full footage from all cameras. But of course you didn't know that, because you know for a fact that you are guilty, The prosecutor also withheld crucial evidence from appellant, blah, blah, blah. The evidence was vital. The sting being authorized by common code, blah, 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 blah. Force evidence, they're so mean, they don't want to get me the evidence. Now he quotes cases that are nothing to do with him. Blah, blah, blah. Now he has a note by his attorney telling the threat by the U.S. to push appellant to plead guilty. He's going to use that a lot. He's going to say, like, I had to plead guilty, else I could have gotten 25 years in jail. But, dude, you negotiate a deal, you accept the deal. If you're not happy with the deal, if you really think you didn't do it, it's not like it's up to you to prove that you're innocent. It's up to the government to prove that you're guilty. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm going to refuse the deal, I get 25 years automatic. Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. I would say this, Lorne. If the lawyer really thought that he could get 25 years, and it was like relatively simple to prove, you know, that you attempted to produce child pornography, he probably would have charged you with it right away. He wouldn't have done the deal. It's pretty obvious that the prosecutor was bluffing. You could say that your defense attorney was incompetent. Any decent defense attorney, I think he could have gotten that charge removed, because there's there's evidence. There's enough evidence to charge you with it. But I would tend to give you the benefit of the doubt. Like you say later on, like, yeah, I brought a camera, but I tried to pawn it. I tried to pawn it for money for gas. It's not the most valid defense on earth. You know, it's like a bit, how can I say, stupid as fuck. But maybe a good defense attorney could have gone and, you know, gotten like the security footage, and you could have like the pawn shop guy to testify. Yeah, he come to my store and he tried to sell a camera. I said no because there was no cover, blah, blah, blah. So I have to say this. You have a little bit of a point here. If you had a really good attorney, it's pretty obvious when you read your attorney that he just wanted to get rid of you. He was pretty happy to take like the $5,000, $10,000, whatever that he got from the government. He just wanted to get rid of you. And I have to say this. It's a shame that if you had more money, if you had like $100,000 in the bank, in my opinion, you would have received far less time in jail. But that's a problem with the whole justice system, not just you. In the US, if you have more money, you spend less time in jail. That's a problem. You know, you have a point, but not related to your case. You have a point related to the entire system. And you're kind of right, you know, saying like, if I had like a really good defense attorney, I would have, you know, I wouldn't have accepted the plea deal, and I might have ended up with a lesser sentence. But that's just, we're in the land of speculation here. The fact is, Lorne, you were offered a deal and you chose to accept it. Period. Now he goes with his new argument. Was in no way, it could in no way make a sound decision because of the depression and emotional problem he was going through. You know, I was going to make fun of you because, you know, you're a bullshitter, you know, and you always like bullshit and lie. But then I realized that you kind of have a point. But then again, it's been 4 months. You've been incarcerated for 4 months. At some point, you have to assume that you're able to make that kind of decision. You know, you had 4 months to recover from the arrest, the fact that there was no way you could pay bail, the fact that you're fucked, the fact that you're on TV. Now you go and say, yeah, but I was too depressed to make that decision. But you just don't have anything to back that up. I mean, if you are too depressed to make that decision, everybody can say that, you know. Oh, I accepted the plea deal. Okay, you know, I'm not going to get more than 60 months in jail. And then after a couple months, you just go and say, oh, I wasn't in the right state of mind. This is why, if I was the judge, I would say, okay, Lorne, you want a new trial? Fine. But we're going to charge you with it. You know, we cancel the plea deal. And we're going to charge you with attempted production of child pornography. So you get a new trial, but if you lose, you're going to jail for 25 years. That's what I would do if I was the judge. Of course, we don't do that because that's not how the justice system works. You know, you're tried. But I would say, Lorne, really want to cancel the agreement? Sure, well, we'll cancel it. We do a new trial. And if you're acquitted, well, you know, you still spent 5 years in jail. So, you know, we can't go back in time. And if you're convicted, okay, you get some extra time. You want a new trial? Sure, let's go do it. But that's not how it was, of course. And Lorne accepted the plea deal, and we're not going to go back from the deal. Even though he was being treated, and the appellant thought the decision he's making was sound because of the advice of his counsel, it was a sound decision to accept the plea deal, by the way, Lorne. Well, you could have gotten maybe a little bit less for about $50,000 in attorney's fee. But let's face it, even if you got out like a year earlier, there's no way you were gonna make that money back. So you kind of saved money by accepting the plea deal. Like it wasn't worth like paying $50,000 to get maybe one less year in jail, because you're not worth $50,000 a year, Lorne. You're not even worth $5,000 a year. You had no idea the illegality, blah blah blah. Counsel no way gave such advice. Blah blah blah. Speaking of sound advice and evidence. Appellant would like to discuss the effectiveness of his attorney. Blah, 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 blah. My attorney sucks. Appellant would have given a list of things his attorney failed to do a long time ago. He's still trying to do that today, by the way, instead of just now figuring out what is needed. If appellant is staying with his court, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's everything that, according to Lorne, makes him not guilty. When appellant was threatened by the prosecutor with the additional charge of attempted production of pornography, he had told his federal attorney of proof for the camera being instructed was because he tried to pawn it at 3 different pawn shops for money, for gas, for work. But the pawn shop wouldn't take it because he had duct tape holding the batteries cover in place. And I'd even given attorney... This is when he said, like, I'm going to put $20 more in my truck. I should have enough gas to go back and forth to your house, you know. He had even given attorney to the direction to the pawn shop on Nolensville Pike in Nashville, Tennessee. He had also told his federal attorney that they had video camera proof in those... This is just, like, a big stretch. You're saying, like, no, I didn't bring the camera to take naked pictures of Kayla. I brought the camera because I was trying to pawn it. And that's just like, that's a big stretch. Even if it's true that you did try to pawn the camera, you still brought a camera to the house, you know? And I had the feeling that your federal defender listened to that and said like, yes, Lorne, you know? I mean, come on. It's a bit silly. Now, again, that might have worked if you went to trial. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe the defense attorney said, like, you know, that's not going to work during a trial. The jury is not going to be convinced by that, blah, blah, blah. Because technically speaking, to prove that you were going to produce child pornography, it has to be pretty damn clear. And in Lorne's case, it is clear. But it's not pretty damn clear. There's a bit of a gray zone. Maybe he wasn't going to do it. Maybe he did bring the camera, but he was going to change his mind. You know, he said, oh, I'm not going to take pictures of you after all. So to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was going to take pictures of Kayla naked, you cannot really prove that. It's really thought crime. It's really guessing. And there are plenty more reasons why somebody might bring a camera with them, you know. Not just to take pictures. Sure, he talks about taking pictures of her naked, my penis in your vagina. You're not helping your case, Lorne. But it's just talk online. It was a long time ago. Maybe he says, no, I wanted to take pictures of us together, but grass. You know, not naked. So I think you would have been acquitted if you were charged with attempted production of child pornography. I don't think you meet the requirements. Maybe a better defense attorney would have said, like, yeah, we're going to refuse the plea deal, blah, 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 go to trial, it's not going to be blah, blah, blah. But that's a big maybe. That's a big stretch. And even if it happened, I think you would have pretty much received the same sentence. You would have been found guilty of trying to rape Kayla. You would have been found guilty of trying to molest a kid. And you would have been, you would have been sentenced to what? 4 years in prison instead of 5? And then you risk your federal and state sentences running consecutively instead of concurrently. I'm not so sure that your defense attorney was not competent to tell you to accept the plea deal. I'm just saying that. There is a checklist used for pretrial publicity. At the time, appellant did not know the illegality of the press putting forth a show like this, where it paints the appellant the worst light possible. Here he kind of has an argument. He's saying basically people would have watched the show and concluded I was guilty just based on the name of the show, To Catch a Predator. He's not completely wrong. You know, jury trial are pretty much bullshit, you know. It's pretty much like a big lottery. But again, that's a problem with the whole judicial system, not just with his case. And it's not true that you're not going to be able to find 12 people who haven't seen To Catch a Predator. I mean, some people went to trial and were acquitted. Some people that were caught on the show. So to say that it's not possible that you're going to be acquitted by a jury, I doubt that, man. It doesn't work, you know. List of options, how extensive, blah, 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 what information was conveyed. Should have put a motion for NBC to wait until to air the show until after the outcome of the case. Why? They report a news story. Like if they make a report on the war, are they supposed to wait until the war is over before they release the information on the war? You know, it makes no sense, Lorne. A different solution. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like the constitutional solution that the old 8 different solution. I have no idea what he's talking about. There should have been a given console when the host to catch operator came out, blah blah blah. Appellant was in a forced situation to divulge information that was incriminating when he was not read his Miranda right by someone working under the color of law. Yeah, but Chris Henson was not working under the color of law. He was a news reporter, and you were not forced. You could have just left. You chose to stay because you wanted to cry and look pitiful and try to talk your way out of your situation. But don't go and say that you were forced to divulge information. Loser. Appellant's attorney should have investigated how the press got a hold of the evidence that was supposed to be in the hand of only those authorized by the government. Another stupid quote that makes no sense. Well, they got a hold of the evidence because it was perverted justice that gave it to them. And why not? Appellant's attorney should have investigated the media presence. Now you're just going on a stretch. It's not even an argument. Appellant's attorney should have investigated the authorization of the sting. Bro, you want your attorney to do so much that is so useless. Your attorney doesn't have an unlimited amount of time. He's not going to waste his time on that bullshit, you know. It wasn't until Appellant had already served 5 years in prison, got released, and was home that he found the evidence was withheld. And now he goes with some evidence about like corrupted justice, that perverted justice is evil, but it's bullshit, you know. Appellant's attorney never investigated the worthiness of the evidence. There were pages missing in the chat log. And then he says that there were things in the chat log conversation that was not said by appellant, such as having anal sex. In the original Lornography, he's right on that. You know, he doesn't talk about anal sex with Kayla. And he's actually, in one document, the prosecutor makes a mistake and says that he was going to engage in anal sex with Kayla. It's a mistake. The prosecutor makes a mistake. And then he says, Armstrong will not have anal sex with an adult female, much less a minor female. I like how he specifies the gender. Like, not with a female, but with a male, maybe. Attorney said there were things that were missing that was said by appellant and the decoys such as, what do they mean by a perv? What's that? Armstrong had asked her where do you see that, and decoy's response was in the room. And then he says there are some lines missing in the Lornography. I believe that sometimes there's a bug, like with the, you know, when they log the chat logs. So maybe there were a couple lines that were received out of order. Also, we missed the conversation that he had with her on the MySpace IM. Pretty short conversation, but we were missing that, you know. There's 11 seconds of silence between the two timestamps. There was not 11 seconds of silence between Decoy and Armstrong during the actual conversation. I remember that. It was only 8 seconds. If one were to look at the timestamp, they would see there was a space in them where nothing was said. There were things missing from the conversation and things that was not said. Attorney waved it up and never did any investigating on it. That is also where they initiated the sex talk. No, they didn't. You did. You fucking liar. Should have raised a red flag. Also was a DVD. He asked if he wanted to see the DVD. He said yes. And he lied. And he told the attorney that the appellant would not like to view the DVD. Exhibit C. Now I'm too curious. I need to see Exhibit C. Damn it. This is going to take all fucking night long. Conclusion. Appellant exerted his concert was in every possible way ineffective. A lot of shady work. Appellant, that's the end. Look at how it was scribbled like so fast. Like, this is such a waste of time. Now there's the evidence, like, please put special attention on the highlighted paragraph. Thank you to my phone verifier, Sound and Aphrodite. She did an awesome job as always. Also, thank you to the State Attorney General Greg Stumbo, the KBI, and the Bowling Green Police, local Kentucky. I don't know, I can't read, but basically there's nothing there. My quotes there. He says here, "What's a perv? What do they mean by that?" He says that here. He says, "Where do you see that?" And it's somehow not them. Maybe some logging mistake. I don't know. Then he says, that's Exhibit C, like the defendant did not wish to review the chat. Also, the defendant did not wish to view the pictures that were also part of his discovery. The defendant is ashamed and very contrite about his circumstances. The defendant stated that he is expected to take a plea rather than proceed to trial. If that is not true, let's say that Scott Wendelsdorf is lying. Actually, somebody wrote to Scott Wendelsdorf, John Iorio, to Scott Wendelsdorf. Oh, that's probably his assistant. You know, probably the assistant of Scott Ronaldorf. Says I traveled to Warren County Jail. The defendant did not wish. He is able to take a plea deal. We also reviewed the letter you wrote to Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong said total agreement about waiting for a federal case to be completed. Mr. Armstrong's state attorney is Sam Lau. That's his number. Now I go to the calendar. March. Probably to say like I didn't have much time to make my decision. And then we have to plea deal. Like fuck you, Lord. I'm gonna continue later. I'm too tired.